He said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. He said it with a smile, like it was funny, like I was supposed to laugh along. He looked at me, a woman standing alone at a community event, no ring on my finger, no man beside me, and he said, "Still by yourself, huh? Some women just can't seem to get it together." The room laughed, but what that room didn't know was that 3 hours before I walked through that door, I had just signed the most important agreement of my life. If you have ever been the woman that people felt sorry for, stay with me. If someone has ever looked at your life and decided you were behind, decided you were missing something, decided your silence meant you had nothing, this story is for you. Stay until the very end, because what I am about to share is not just my story. It is a mirror, and I believe when you see yourself in it, something is going to shift. If this channel is new to you, subscribe right now and turn on notifications because we tell real stories here, stories that don't get told anywhere else. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a small town in the South where everybody knew your name and everybody also knew your business. Where I came from, there was a very specific picture of what a good woman looked like. Married by 25, children before 30, a clean house, a supportive role, church on Sunday, and no too many questions about what else life could look like. That was the picture. And for a long time, I tried to fit inside it. I tried not because I believed in it, but because I loved the people who did. My mother was a good woman by every definition that town had. My grandmother was too, and they loved me fiercely, proudly, and with a blueprint already drawn for who I was supposed to become. But I was different from a very young age. While other girls played house, I was outside in the garden with my grandfather, asking him why certain soil grew certain things, why some land stayed dry no matter how much rain fell, why some families had fields and others had nothing. I was 8 years old asking questions nobody had answers to. And instead of feeling smart, I just felt strange. I carried that feeling all the way into adulthood. I studied agricultural science in college because it was the only thing that made my whole body feel awake. My family was proud but confused. "What are you going to do with that?" was the question I heard most. "When are you going to settle down?" was the second. After I graduated, I took a job with a land conservation organization in a rural county 3 states from home. I was 24, living alone, working long hours, and genuinely happy. But nobody believed me. Every phone call home had an undercurrent of worry. Every family gathering had that one aunt who looked at me sideways. And slowly, without realizing it, I started questioning myself. Not my work, but myself. I started measuring my life against the picture I was raised to want, and every time I did, I came up short. That is the most dangerous thing that can happen to a woman who is building something. Not failure, not obstacles, not even heartbreak. The most dangerous thing is when you start seeing yourself through the eyes of people who cannot see where you're going. I even stayed in a relationship longer than I should have because leaving felt like proving everybody right, that something was missing in me. When it ended, I sat in my apartment for a full weekend and spoke to no one. Not because I was devastated, but because I needed to hear myself think without everyone else's noise. And somewhere in that quiet, something cracked open. I made a decision so simple and so profound I almost didn't recognize it as a turning point. I stopped living in defense of my choices and started living in devotion to them. That was the moment everything changed. The event was a regional agricultural forum, the kind of gathering where farmers, land advocates, and food policy people come together to talk about the future of food in Black and rural communities. I had been attending these forums for years. This was my world, my space, my people. But this particular evening was different for me, even if nobody in that room knew it yet. That morning, after nearly 3 years of quiet and exhausting work, I had finalized an agreement with a coalition of rural Black landowners and a regional food distribution network. What we built together was a community food sovereignty program that would preserve over 400 acres of Black-owned farmland, create sustainable income for 11 farming families, and deliver fresh produce to food-insecure households across 4 counties. 3 years of meetings, rejections, renegotiations, grant applications, and nights where I did not know if any of it would hold together. And that morning, it held. The signatures were on the paper. The land was protected. The families were secured. I drove to that forum in a kind of peaceful silence I don't have the right words for. Not excitement, something deeper. The feeling of having carried something heavy for a very long time and finally being allowed to set it down. I walked into that room carrying that feeling. I got a plate of food. I found a spot near the back. I was alone, yes. I was not on anyone's arm. No one saving me a seat. Just a woman standing by herself, looking calm, maybe a little distant because my mind was still sitting in that morning. And that is when he spoke. He was a man in that space who carried himself with the particular confidence of someone who had never been seriously challenged. He had a circle around him the way such men usually do, and he saw me standing alone, and something about that apparently needed to be addressed out loud. He said it casually, almost warmly, as if he were doing me a favor. "Still by yourself, huh? Some women just can't seem to get it together." He chuckled. Someone near him laughed. A few others smiled in that uncomfortable way. People smile when they don't want to agree but don't want to disagree either. I looked at him. I did not look away quickly. I did not smile to soften the moment for him. I looked at him with the kind of stillness that only comes when you are standing on ground you have already earned. And I said nothing. Not because I had nothing to say. I had everything to say, but I had learned that not everything deserves your words. Some things only deserve your witness. I witnessed him. I witnessed the room. Then I went back to my plate. But inside, in that private space where only I could hear, I was thinking, you have no idea. You are standing 3 feet away from a woman who just secured 400 acres of land for families who have been losing ground for generations. And you are concerned about whether I have a boyfriend. You are looking at me and seeing absence. But I am standing here full, completely, overwhelmingly full. And the fact that you cannot see that is not my poverty. It is yours. I finished my food, I spoke to the people I came to speak to, I drove home alone, and I slept better that night than I had in 3 years. Let me tell you what 3 years of quiet work actually looks like, because people hear she was building something and imagine a straight line. It is nothing like that. It started at a funeral. One of the old farmers from a county I had surveyed passed away, and at the reception, his daughter pulled me aside and told me the family was probably going to have to sell the land. Not because they wanted to, but because property taxes had climbed and there was no infrastructure to keep the farm generating enough income. She said it quietly, the way people talk about things they have already accepted as inevitable. I could not accept it. I went home that night and started writing, not a business plan, just questions. What would it take? Who needed to be involved? What do these families actually need that they weren't getting? 4 hours later, I had a direction. Over the following months, I started having conversations. With farmers, with land trusts, with food banks, with elders who remembered when these communities were entirely self-sufficient and watched that self-sufficiency get stripped away piece by piece. Every meeting taught me something. I was doing all of this outside my regular job. Evenings, weekends, no funding, no guarantee. There were 2 moments I almost stopped. The first was when a grant I spent 60 hours writing got rejected without explanation. I sat in a parking lot and cried, not delicately. Then I gave myself 20 minutes and drove home and started looking for the next opportunity. The second was when one of the farming families decided to sell anyway. They needed money now, not in the future, and I could not be angry at people for surviving. But that night I questioned everything. I called my mentor, an older woman who had spent 30 years in land rights work. She listened to me fall apart, and then she said something I have carried ever since. She said, "The work was never yours to control. It was only ever yours to do. Keep doing it." I kept doing it, and slowly, painfully, beautifully, it took shape. The coalition came together. The funding arrived in pieces from places I hadn't thought to look. The landowners who had been skeptical started to trust the process. The distribution network that had initially said no came back 18 months later with a different answer. 430 acres, 11 families, 4 counties. A legal structure protecting the land from future sale pressure. A revenue model giving farmers real income, not charity. This was not a dream anymore. It was infrastructure. Something that would exist after I was gone. I built it alone, not lonely, alone. There is a profound difference between those 2 words, and I wish someone had explained it to me earlier. Lonely is an absence. Alone is a choice. I was alone in the way anyone who builds something serious is alone. Fully responsible, fully committed, no one to share the weight, but also no one to dilute the vision. 7 months after that forum, the project launched publicly. A small ceremony on one of the farms. Nothing glamorous, just land and people and food and a kind of joy that has no performance in it. A regional food justice publication ran a full feature. Word spread the way real things spread. Not viral, but steady. Person to person, community to community. He reached out about 3 weeks after the coverage circulated. A short message, complimentary but awkward in the way messages are when someone is trying to acknowledge something without fully admitting what it means. He said the project was impressive. Great work. He hoped things were going well. I read it twice and felt nothing sharp. No satisfaction, no anger, no desire to remind him of that night. Just a quiet clarity. I replied simply, thanked him, and wished him well. Because by then I understood his comment was never really about me. It was about the limits of his imagination. He looked at me and saw what was missing by his measurement. He had no framework for what I was doing because it didn't fit inside any picture of a life that made sense to him. People who mock your solitude or your unconventional path are not always cruel. Most of them are just working with a very small map and genuinely cannot see the territory you are moving through. You cannot stay angry at someone for not being able to see what they were never taught to look for. But here is what took me years to learn. Their limitation is not your instruction. Just because someone cannot see where you are going does not mean you are lost. The most painful years of my life were not the hard years of building. They were the years I let other people's measurements become my own. The years I picked up their ruler and applied it to myself. Putting that ruler down was the most liberating thing I have ever done. And the silence I chose that night, I know some people wonder about it. Why didn't I defend myself? Why didn't I correct him right there? Because I had already decided that my life was not a debate. A woman who knows what she has built does not need to argue for its value in a room that didn't build it with her. The evidence was already written in the land, in the families, in the work. I did not need that room to confirm what the morning had already sealed. The moment you stop needing the room to understand you is the moment you become truly rooted, not cold, not closed, rooted, settled in yourself in a way that other people's opinions simply cannot reach. The program is now in its second year. We have expanded into 2 additional counties. 3 of the farming families have brought younger members into the operation, which means we are not just preserving land. We are transferring knowledge, keeping something alive that almost died. There are children on those farms now learning what my grandfather taught me, that soil is not just ground. It is history. It is future. It is identity. My own life is full in ways I did not predict. Love found me on my own terms, not as a rescue, not as a completion, but as an addition to something already whole. I did not shrink to receive it. I did not pretend to need saving. But I want to be honest. Even if that had not happened, even if I were still alone by every conventional measure, this life would still be enough, more than enough, because what I have built is not a consolation prize. It is a life I chose, deeply and deliberately, even in the seasons when I couldn't fully see it taking shape. Your alone season is not your punishment. It is not a waiting room. For some of us, it is the most important season of our lives, the time when we figure out who we actually are when no one is watching, what we actually want when no one is telling us, what we are truly capable of when we stop performing a life that other people can understand and start building the one that was always meant for us. To the woman who has been mocked, pitied, looked at sideways, handed concern disguised as love, I see you. Not the absence they see. I see what you are actually doing. I see the quiet, serious, intentional work of a woman who has decided to build something real. The world will catch up to you. It always does. It just usually takes longer than the room expects. He laughed at what he could not see. But everything I was, everything I had built, and everything I was about to become was already present in that room, already complete, already on its way. He just didn't have the eyes for it, and that was never my problem to solve. Before you leave, go to the comments right now and write one thing you're quietly building that the world hasn't seen yet. One thing you're carrying that the people around you don't fully understand. Write it down and claim it out loud, because the moment you name it, it becomes more real, not to them, to you. And right now, you are the only one who needs to believe in it. If this story reached someone you know, share it with her today. Not 100 people, just one, the right one. You already know who she is. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because we are going to keep telling these stories. Stories of women who built in the dark, moved in silence, and came back with receipts. This is your space. And remember, the life they couldn't imagine for you was never the life you were building anyway.